Welcome to this video on the fundamentals of the Thoth court cards. This is going to be a very short video, and it's going to be followed by 3 or 4 other short videos on how to understand the court cards. After these short videos, I'm going to do a specific video on each of the court cards in turn. So with the major arcana, each card really represents a universal principle. So we know, for instance, that the Wheel of Fortune is very different to, say, the Empress. And with the minor arcana, they represent a specific quality of the suit. So the Ace of Discs is going to have a very different meaning to the Seven of Cups. And we can see that quite clearly in both the majors and the minors. But with the court cards, they're far more nebulous. For instance, how does the Knight of Wands differ from the Queen of Swords? You know, how does the Prince of Wands differ from the Prince of Discs? And so on. And that's because the court cards are not just one universal principle or specific quality. They represent people, and people are a mixture of different energies. So the court cards, by their very nature, are more difficult to grasp. Now, we can just intuit the meanings of each card and use your intuition as a channel, and if you want to do divination with them, then that is a great way to do that, and many people are very good at doing it. But in order to really understand what's behind the court cards themselves, where they come from, how the meanings are derived, we need to look a bit more structured. One thing I'm not going to be doing when I'm talking about the court cards of the Thoth deck is talking about the Rider-Waite deck, because with the Rider-Waite deck, Waite deliberately mixed up a lot of the attributions associated with the court cards, because he did not want people to be able to share in his information regarding the inner meanings of these cards. So they are deliberately, some of the information is deliberately falsified. I think in his book, The Pictorial Key to the Tarot, it's in one of his books anyway, where he essentially, you know, gives misinformation, which isn't really very useful in, you know, today's world where we really want to access information and understand things. So going back to the Thoth deck, and these court cards are beautiful compared to the Rider-Waite deck anyway, so that's another reason for wanting to study these. I'm going to classify them in 4 different ways: elementally, fire, water, air, earth, and so on, with regards to the Tetragrammaton. And for those of you not familiar with this, I'm going to just talk very simply, very briefly in this particular video on the court cards. Then I'm going to do a short video on their astrological association and the associated minor arcana card, because each one of these, apart from the princesses, are associated with 3 specific minor arcana cards. In terms of the astrological association, the princesses again are an exception to that, and I will go through how they fit in the relevant video. And the final classification I'm going to do of the court cards is their position on the Tree of Life and in the 4 worlds, and that'll be in the last video. So all of these are going to be relatively short, and then once we have got the basics in position, we can then look at each particular card in a bit more detail and understand where those meanings come from. For those of you that are really keen, there is a book, Tarot Beyond the Basics, by Anthony Louis and other authors, and they classified the court cards in terms of hot, dry, cold and wet. This is an excellent book. This particular chapter I find challenging. Well, all the chapters are challenging really, but I don't particularly find this classification, I find it a bit complex, and I feel I've got more than enough information with the 4 that I'm going to use here. Okay, so I'll end this video now, and as I say, with the next video I'm going to talk about their elemental classification, and then further short videos on the rest of the points that are mentioned here.